Engine swaps, rebuilds, conversions, any of these things never go as planned and always take 5 times longer and 3 times more money than you budgeted. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about that and also do some shop updates of some of the vehicles in the background. There's some really sweet updates. We've been really moving pretty fast in the shop, and it's really happy because we can get some of these things out of here. But in my younger years, you just saw a video when I've tried to do engine swaps and things, and I would go to forums and check them out and say, what does it take to do this swap? What does it take to do that swap? And no matter if it was a Chevy forum or a Jeep forum or Honda forum, or no matter where it was, the old timers would always chime in and say, whatever you budget in your mind, times that times 5, and however long you think it's going to take, times that times 3. And you know what? They have never been wrong. Every time I've ever attempted it, it always ends up that way. So the idea is just $2,000, bro. You can LS swap it. No, it's going to be about $6 or $8,000, and it's not going to take a month. It's going to take 3. It's just the way it always ends up. You guys know with the Jeep and also with the Nova, we had lifter issues that were poor quality of parts. We got old stock where you can physically see the bottom of the lifters. You can physically see they've been hardened. They're actually brown, like a brownish gold color. They weren't that way with new lifters. This customer had the engine pulled out. We pulled it out for him, and he took it to his own builder and had it rebuilt. We got it back, and it didn't even last 10 or 20 miles. I think the engine builder actually dynoed it, and they revved it. They didn't do the break-in period. I don't think they did things correctly, and the engine had to come back out a second time. If you want to get caught up on what happened there, the link to that video is in the description below if you want to check that out. But we had the engine sent off to my builder, Martin Machine, and he did a very, very good job and got everything updated and upgraded. And he's got old stock cam, old stock lifters, all the old stuff. It's new, but it's old from back in the 80s. We've got that back together. The engine is actually back in, and it's almost getting close to being ready to start it back up. Keep in mind, this thing has been here for almost 2 years. Fighting all this stuff. The customer didn't just want a swap for swap engine for engine swap. He also wanted it upgraded to fuel injection with the Edelbrock ProFlow 4 system, which is what we've done. And we didn't really even have any trouble with that, but just mechanical problems. In fact, we just put on a new timing cover on this thing because the old one had gotten scored and whatnot from the previous catastrophe. We got the new timing cover on, and all we were doing is priming the oil system and getting it ready, and the front of the timing cover was just leaking oil. We're like, well, what? And if you look closely, from the factory there was a casting, something went wrong. There was a crack all the way through the casting, and it was just pouring oil. There was oil passages there. So I ordered another timing cover. And it's happy, it's doing fine now. But every step of the way on this vehicle has been redo it a second and a third time, and it hasn't been because of workmanship, but because of crap parts. I don't know what can you do about that? I don't know. But everything's almost done, the wiring, everything's hooked back up, the fuel lines are hooked back up. We're getting close to putting oil in it and following the proper break-in procedure. All through the reassembly of this engine was used BG assembly lube, which is very high in nickel and ZDDP or whatever that stuff is called. The cam, the lifters, everything was done slathered in that stuff. So once we get it done, we'll do the break-in procedure and make sure it all goes well. This wasn't a major changeover like an LS swap or something. It was just the same engine. We just had to convert it to fuel injection, and melding old systems with new systems and trying to make everything work. EVAP system. Yes, it does have an EVAP system. It has a charcoal canister, and trying to make that work with the fuel injection system. Because if you don't, the customer will park their vehicle in their garage and it'll fill their whole house with gas fumes, just like the old days. There was no evap back then. Just vent it to the air. We can't just vent it to the air. We have to make that system work. The ignition system, the fuel injection, run fuel lines and redo everything and try to make all the old stuff and the new stuff work together. It's extremely time consuming. This is why you can go to Marketplace and find cars in this state, partially reassembled, and they threw in the towel. They ran out of money and they don't have the knowledge to continue to go further. They ran into a brick wall. They're like, I don't understand how to make this work. I don't even know what to do now. And it's going to cost so much money to have a shop do it, so I give up. Here's this car that should be worth $4 or $5 grand and it's worth $2. Here's just part it out or whatever. It's not for the faint of heart. If you don't know what you're doing with these, you can really get into a lot of trouble. The system on here is very simple. It has just air intake, temperature, map sensor, just the basic, almost like a TBI system. It's not super complicated with all kinds of emissions systems and things of that nature. So luckily we don't have to worry about that. But even with all that, it's very time consuming and very difficult. Luckily, I'm thinking it'll go well this time because we've got proper parts, proper assembly. We did some of the assembly ourselves. Martin Machine did the major engine rebuilding, the bearings, the clearances, and things of that nature. But he left it up to us to physically put the cam in and the lifters and everything, so that I wanted to see with my own eyes that we put the BG assembly lube and everything like that. So it should go well. And then the customer can have their vehicle back, finally. Let's take a look at the engine bay. So here we are in the engine bay. There's all kinds of wiring and hoses and things that have been adapted to make this all work. You can see here it has this fuel sump. The original fuel pump is still intact and it still pumps fuel, but it doesn't pump it to a carburetor. It instead pumps it to this sump and fills it up. And then there's an EFI high pressure pump, relatively high pressure compared to a carb, that pumps it to the fuel rails here and into the injection system. You can see that we had to do some adaptations to make the kickdown cable, the throttle cable, all that work. A lot of this wiring you see here, we left it purposely exposed without looming installed, because if there's any issues, we need to dial something in or change a few things around, it's very easy to get in there and look at the wires and see what we need to do. But everything seems to be going as planned. Everything's going well. I'm hoping to have this thing done and back to the customer by Christmas or earlier. This should have been done a long time ago. And if the original engine had been assembled properly, we would have dialed everything in and be done, and this Jeep wouldn't be in here. It's kind of disheartening. But I'll be happy when it drives off. Let's head on over to the Hummer. This is the M998 Humvee that you guys recently also saw a video on, and we got the okay from the customer to go through and do a lot of the work that we talked about. We've got the CV shaft off. We're going to put a new boot on it. Magic Mike is going back together with the transfer case. It's been resealed so it'll stop leaking. There's some hoses to do, services with fluids, and also I have a pitman arm, an idler arm, and 8 glow plugs ordered for this thing. I went through and tested the glow plug system. The customer complained about cold start issues. And on these systems, if it senses 1, 2, or 3 glow plugs not working, the resistance, everything is wrong, it just won't glow very well. It won't do a very good warm-up, and it won't start very well. I found 3 that were dead. I measured 1.6, 1.8, somewhere, some of the good plugs, but I got to 3 of them that measured nothing, just dead. Being that that's what these glow plugs are on, one after another are going to start failing, maybe from age or whatever. I just went ahead and ordered all 8. Let's take a quick look underneath and then we'll move on to the Nova. Here we have the passenger front CV shaft out, and you can see that it is completely torn. The customer did supply a new boot kit for us, so we'll clean this joint up, put new grease, and put a new boot on it, and that'll take care of that. So I mentioned in the previous video these have 2-to-1 geared hubs, kind of like a portal axle. The CV shaft is not hooked here directly to the hub. It's way up here. The CV shaft splines go into here, and they turn a small gear, which turns a larger gear down here for the actual flange. These are serviced with 80 W90 gear oil. There's a drain plug right here, and you can fill it through this side plate. There's a fill plug right here. These frequently got overlooked in the motor pool. They'd ask, did you service it? And they'd say yes. One of the mechanics would say yes, and they'd go to check these, and they're nasty, they're dirty oil. 4 of these. So you got 2 differentials and 4 geared hubs to get gear oil on these. Here's our idler arm, and I'll jiggle it here. You can see it move up and down. And also the same story on the pitman arm. I'll wiggle it, and you can see it move right in through here. See it wiggling. When you have multiple different things with play in them on these systems, it's called stack tolerances, and what happens is this little bit moves, that little bit moves, this little bit moves, and then it turns into this much play in your steering wheel. We're going to get those taken care of, and that will tighten up the steering wheel greatly. Let's move back to the transfer case. So this transfer case was leaking right here. We got a new gasket. We also put some black silicone to help seal it up, but it was just pouring fluid out of here, which was not good. Magic Mike's going back together with it. It's already resealed, ready to be done. So once the glow plugs show up, also the pitman arm and the idler arm, we'll get those installed. We'll finish up what we got going on here, and we'll be almost done with the M998. And everything that we're doing on this is still 10 times easier than the engine swap, the engine repair, rebuild, whatever that's going on the Jeep. This stuff's pretty easy right here. Let's move over to the Nova. So here we are with the 79 Nova. It had the same issues. It had failed cam and lifters, just like it did on the Jeep, just poor quality parts. And what we've got going on is we got some old stock cam, old stock lifters, actually got it back together. Everything is almost ready to put oil in it and start doing the break-in procedure with this one as well. But keep in mind, with both of these projects, the customers did not expect us to focus on them full time. They know that in this type of a shop, we have to have turnover. We have to have cars coming and going. We're not a restoration shop. A lot of people seem to think we are. We are not a restoration shop. Those exist out in the West Coast, not here. So that's why they said, take your time. As you get time, you can work on the Nova, work on the Jeep. And I'm very grateful for them being understanding and patient. We'll take a look around in the engine bay real quick. So the customer wanted the interior seats redone. That's all been done. We're just finishing up in the engine bay. As you can see, we're doing now the preload on the lifters themselves with the push rods. Gone through and do all that. And you guys know, I've already told you, Junior Mint has left. He doesn't work here anymore, so I'm going to have to pick up where he left off. Which luckily most of it's already done. I just have to go through and verify what he did and start getting this thing ready to run. So hopefully we get done with this pretty soon and we can get these back to the customers. Even though we keep getting phone calls, people wanting us to do this type of work, we've said many times, the couple of few cars that are in here will be the last old cars that we do major big jobs on. It's just, actually, to be honest, I won't make any money on any of them. I will break even. That's it. And it's sad. It's just the way it is. If I want to make money, I have to charge way more for these, and then people are going to be like, well, that's too high. I don't want to do it. Well, then why am I doing it? So that's basically where I'm at with these cars. But do keep in mind with the engine swaps, this isn't an engine swap. This is just replace or rebuild and put it back in. And it's having so much trouble. We actually know a guy not too far away who's doing a Hellcat swap engine into a Charger, and it's just sitting inside of there, and he's just like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know. This is way, way above my head. This is way more than I thought it would be. There's wires everywhere. There's hoses everywhere, and it's like, bro, I don't want to help you. I don't want anything to do with that. I'm sorry. It's just, you got yourself into that. You're gonna have to get yourself out. So that's where we're at with these big engine jobs. We got a few other updates, some positive notes. So let's head on over to the 61 Lincoln. So it seems like a long time ago you saw a video on the 61 Lincoln, and it has been a while. We've been working at it and getting things done. You remember we had to send off those heater core valves. We did get them back and put them on from the last guy in the country that's actually doing them. And they work fine, no more leaks. We had some more things we had to fight with the brakes, but they're working good now. We got the new tires on. We got a few things to tidy up and some road tests, and this thing will be ready to get out of here. We are getting to where there is a light at the end of the tunnel for the 61 Lincoln. I'm very excited to get this thing done and get it back to the customer as well. Here's the 82 308 GTSI that we've done a whole bunch of work to. There's actually some videos on that. It's actually 98% done. We're just waiting on the alignment shop to get an opening, which here we're going to have one pretty soon. This needs an alignment, and it's going to be going off to get some paint correction done at a different shop. But we are almost done with the 308. It's amazing. There's like 3 or 4 alignment shops in the area, and all of them are booked to the next 2 or 3 weeks for alignments. It's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I guess I just have to wait. There's an idea people have mentioned you should get your own alignment rack, but I kind of looked at the data. Last year I think I did 14 alignments. That's not enough to pay for a $90,000 alignment rack. That just doesn't even make sense. In Kansas City, I actually know some of the owners of exotic car repair shops, and they do not have alignment racks either because they do 10 or 15 a year. It's just not worth it. But that's what we're waiting on for this, and then it will be gone. Let's move over to the Jag. This is the 99 XJR that Mrs. Wizard keeps drooling over.
It is absolutely beautiful.
And it's done. We got everything done on the list. We called the customer today, let them know the price, and they said they'll be here soon to get it. They'll let us know when they're coming. But it is completely finished. One of the things about customers that are out of state, they can't be here tomorrow to get their car. So, until they can get here to pick up the car, you will continue to see it in the videos. It'll be in the background. Well, why isn't that one done yet? It is. It is done. We're just waiting for it to get picked up. So, everything went well. We did an ABS rebuild. There's a coolant hose. There was several different other things, a latch in the door. It's done. So we still have 3 project cars going on here. We have the Juke, the Malibu, and also the 308. The 308's a running and driving car. You guys saw that. But the clutch has always been out. Ever since even Freddie sold it to me when he was filming Car Trek with it, the clutch was out. And it's still out. Luckily, I have a new complete clutch kit that just arrived. I'll have Danielson install that, and it'll take care of the slipping clutch. Then we can really get some road time with it and check it out. Once that's done, I mentioned we'll get to the Malibu. We'll pull it down off the lift and then continue on with that. The Juke, I'm just having Danielson finish this up, and then he's going to help me finish the Juke. So they will get done. They're just, like I've mentioned before, I'd rather make money than spend money. So that's where we're at with that. If you're curious what kind of tools that we use to work on any of these cars we just showed, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below and get a small cut, and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.